Morning, ladies and gentlemen, residents of Stoughton, elected officials, Representative Bill Galvin, Senator Walter Timilty, current members of the Select Board, residents of Stoughton, our partners on the Red Team Stoughton Fire, current members and former members of the Stoughton Police Department. We'd like to thank you for being here today on this momentous occasion. This time we're going to open with the singing of the National Anthem by Casey Jenkins. If you could come forward, Casey.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Oh, yeah. Oh. Casey. All right. Thank you. For anybody who doesn't know Casey is the daughter of Stoughton's own Sergeant Dean Jenkins, and she never lets us down when it comes to the National Anthem, so thank you very much. So here we stand in the Peter J. McGarvey Police Memorial Park on this beautiful day that we've been given. I was a little nervous when we started the planning portion of this because we had a hurricane moving up the coast, but thank goodness we're okay. We got a crisp fall day here. I would imagine that doing the research, I found out that Peter McGarvey was first appointed to the Stoughton Police Department 100 years ago in 1920. I had some difficulty locating the exact date, but just by coincidence, he was appointed 100 years ago to the Stoughton Police Department. I would imagine that when he was appointed to be a police officer in town, he came from a time in policing where his issued equipment list consisted of a 6-shooter, a set of handcuffs, a club, and not until 1931 was he issued a call box key for the 4 different police boxes that were installed in different locations in the town. Policing's changed quite a great deal since then. So I'm now going to take us back in time about 100 years to 1920 with this excerpt from the Stoughton History, courtesy of StoughtonHistory.com. You may hear some consistent themes about Stoughton Center. Increased traffic brought much additional work to the police department following the years in 1920 when Peter J. McGarvey was appointed to the regular force, making him the 3rd of 3 permanent men in the department. 3. This was the first increase in personnel since the year 1895 when Richard Vanston, James Pye were appointed as regular police officers. Charles Robinson was also appointed soon after, but he died shortly afterwards, and the vacant position was not filled until 1925. In 1920, the department expended the sum of $259 for the upkeep of the police automobile and also spent a great deal of money on the installation of traffic signs throughout town. These traffic signs were placed at all points entering the town, and the maximum speed limit of 15 miles an hour was set. In February of 1925, Chief Richard Vanston, he passed away. Following an examination, Peter J. McGarvey was appointed to the position of police chief, which he had held since till the end of his career. Since his appointment, the department has taken on many new duties and responsibilities, and the responsibilities have increased to a tremendous degree. New officers had been added when needed, with Lewis Swanson being appointed to the regular police force in 1924, and Sidney Morey in 1925, and he was appointed sergeant in 1930. Timothy Roach in 1926, Fred Lowe in 1928, Duncan Fleming in 1929, and Thomas Mara in 1937. In 1926, the local police department added a motorcycle to its equipment, but discontinued its use in 1931 following an accident in which Duncan Fleming was seriously injured and the cycle was practically wrecked. The many traffic problems concerning Stoughton Square were solved in some manner by the erection of 2 traffic beacons in 1926, taking the place of the red lanterns which were hung on small wooden barriers before this time. These lanterns were always being destroyed, and it was finally decided that it was necessary to install beacons. Numerous traffic signs have been installed through the succeeding years, and parking lines and pedestrian lanes painted in the streets. The placing of signs at intersections, making them throughways, was begun in 1932 with the signs being placed at the corner of Prospect and Seaver, Walnut and Prospect, and making Prospect a throughway. In 1933, Pleasant Street was made a throughway when signs were placed at the corner of Pleasant and Central Streets. Signs were placed at Pleasant and Prospect Streets in 1939 and Walnut Park and Park and Walnut Street in the same year. In 1940, signs were placed in Lincoln and Pleasant Streets, Morton and Plain, and in other years, signs were placed at School and Wash, School and Pearl, School and Canton, Lincoln and Wash, Central Street. These signs have made Pleasant Street and Washington Street and Prospect Streets throughways and make it necessary to stop before entering them. Today, the Stoughton Police Department has its own headquarters in the townhouse and is noted to be one of the most efficient departments in this section. It has 5 regular men on duty at intervals through the day and night. It has 1 intermittent regular and 14 special policemen ready for duty. It's completely equipped with a cruising car and all other necessities that are completely standardized. The cruising car was installed with a one-way radio in 1934 and is always tuned to the Massachusetts State Police Barracks in Bridgewater. An outside phone system was installed in 1931 with 4 boxes located at Pleasant and Washington, Porter and Washington, the Masonic Building, Wyman Street, and the Catholic Church on Canton Street. Its jail is located in the basement of Town Hall, where it moved in 1927. At that time, the old jail was torn down and steel cages were shipped to the town farm, where they have been ever since. The new jail has a modern steel cage, and it's complete with toilet facilities and is always kept in the best order. I found this while researching some of the history here for today, because I think it's interesting, the distinction of how different a lot of the problems and issues were then, and how some of them are the same in some small ways. I mean, my, how the times have changed in 100 years, and it's like the blink of an eye. We're in a time right now where police are facing national scrutiny. I can tell you right now that the people standing here are having an effect on the morale of the men and women of the Stoughton Police Department just by being here as community members and showing support. Generally in policing, there are 2 mindsets. There is the warrior mindset and there is the guardian mindset. The warrior mindset is generally that of the enforcer of the rule of law. The guardian mindset is that of the protector, the person who oversees constitutional rights and protects the citizens of the community. We find ourselves in a position now where police officers have to decide between which mindset to be in and have to decide that with split-second speed. Unlike the times of Peter McGarvey, we find ourselves having an array of equipment to choose from, an array of different conflict resolution models and options to de-escalate situations as they arise. There's probably never been a more steeply challenging time to be a police officer and to be in this profession. However, the lifeblood of this profession is the men and women of the Stoughton Police Department. We have a highly educated, trained group of professionals who are here to serve this community, and they have been doing so even in the face of a global pandemic. We're constantly engaging our community because we cannot do this job without you. Under the administration of President Barack Obama, there was a 21st century task force on policing, and in this task force, it produced the 6 pillars of policing that will be necessary to operate in this industry in the 21st century. The first pillar was identified as building trust and legitimacy. The second pillar was identified as policy and oversight. The third pillar was identified as technology and social media. The fourth pillar was identified as community policing and crime reduction. The fifth pillar was identified as training and education. And the sixth pillar was identified as officer wellness and safety. In Stoughton, you may find it surprising we did not adopt a single one of these pillars. And the fortunate reason for that is because we had already been engaged in all 6 of them in this community, and I would be happy to have a discussion with any person off book who would like to know how we have met these pillars. The core values of the Stoughton Police Department are fairness, trustworthiness, and service. Fairness indicates that we're going to practice procedural justice and treat the members of the community, as well as all people that we encounter, fairly and objectively. Trustworthiness interconnects the principles of integrity, honesty, and accountability. We are required by our oaths of office to hold ourselves to a higher standard of law by holding ourselves and others accountable. Service is the foundation of what we do. We are duty-bound to provide a service and to be at our best when people need us the most and are at their worst. It is our goal, and many of the veteran members of the Stoughton Police Department have heard this before, to leave people better off than when we found them. I would like to once again thank you again for being here today, ladies and gentlemen. This is an incredible showing of support from this community, and it represents community partnership and community engagement to see our elected officials here, to see our state elected officials here, to see members from the other components of public service here, and to see you, ladies and gentlemen, as members of the community here today. Thank you again. At this time, I'll be calling Chief McNamara to the podium for a presentation. Sure.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today on this beautiful day. In July of 2018, we had a member of our police department have a discussion with a community member. We are going to present an award today to, it's been quoted as him being called Mr. Stoughton, Michael Varner, for his efforts over the last 2 years to help make this day come to fruition. Michael, if you could step forward. In July of 2018, you discussed the construction of a flagpole at McGarvey Memorial Park with a member of the Stoughton Police Department. You located a surplus pole that was owned by the town of Stoughton. In the spring of 2020, you single-handedly took it upon yourself to take this project to the next level by personally soliciting the help of many community members and businesses knowing that the surplus flagpole would need a foundation and a proper support structure. With the support of Sheehan Funeral Home, Bates Remodeling, Steve and Danny Bates, Malcolm and Parsons, the Hardy family, John P. Russell Insurance, Brian Bailey, Jeff Roderick, Stoughton Department of Public Works, the Public House, Keith Galizio, Rodrigo from Gardening Angels Landscaping, Tiffany Marie White, the Stoughton Lions Club, and Mike LaFleur, you managed to pool the resources to bring this project to fruition. Your undying effort is representative and symbolic of your dedication to this community and your support of the Stoughton Police Department. Your actions represent the very heart of community partnership and embody the idea of community engagement. It is for these reasons and many other reasons I am proud to present you with the Stoughton Police Department Civilian Public Service Award. Congratulations on a job well done, and I thank you for all you do for the Stoughton community as a whole. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to say the police officer's prayer at this time. You all bow your heads. Lord, I ask for courage. Courage to face and conquer my fears. Courage to take me where others won't go. Lord, I ask for strength. Strength of body to protect others, and strength of spirit to lead others. Lord, I ask for dedication. Dedication to do my job well. Dedication to my community, to keep it safe, and please, Lord, through it all, be at my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I would like to call Stoughton Veterans Agent Michael Pazyra to the podium for an address. Mr. Pazyra.
Not as tall as you, Brian. Well, good morning, everybody. It is an honor for me to have been asked to participate in this ceremony, this flag raising today. What I was asked to do was to speak on the actual meaning of the flags that you're going to see raised. Generally, what you see is the U.S. flag, the American flag, and you also see underneath it the POW flag. I didn't get dressed up today because I had this shirt where you can see the POW flag under the American flag. The POW MIA is a flag you pretty much see everywhere flying beneath the U.S. flag. In just a little over a generation has become a symbol of our culture. Throughout all of our country's wars, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have been taken prisoner or gone missing. But it took the Vietnam War and a sense of abandonment felt by the families of those missing and held captive to bring forth this powerful symbol. The genesis of the flag began with the National League of POW MIA Families, which formed in 1969 to spread awareness of the mistreatment of our prisoners who are being held by their captors. This group was formed by, among others, Sybil Stockdale. Many of you old enough may remember James Stockdale. He was shot down and was a prisoner of war back in 1965, so at the time this was being initiated, he had already been a prisoner for 4 years. You might also remember he ran for vice president in the 1992 presidential election. He was Ross Perot's running mate. In 1971, years later, Mary Hoff, another surviving spouse of a Navy pilot who was shot down and missing in action, he had been missing since 1970, she created the idea for a logo. She called the country's at that time oldest and largest flag manufacturer, and they in turn passed the job on to a small advertising agency. It was a graphic artist, his name was Newton Heisley, who was tasked with designing the flag. He was a World War II vet who had earned the Bronze Star as a pilot in his own right. Back then in 1971, virtually every adult male was a veteran having served in World War II or Korea, and then certainly a significant amount had served in Vietnam by that time. He created the idea of what I have on my sleeve and what we'll shortly be seeing today. The profile of a haggard man with a guard tower and a strand of barbed wire in the background. The silhouette on the flag was actually modeled by his son, who was a 24-year-old Marine who was home on leave, who was gaunt and skinny, recovering from hepatitis. Originally, he had planned to add color to the design, but the starkness, the blackness, it was more of the mood of what the symbol actually meant, and so it remained black. Also, and to be sure, we never can forget the families of these things. The flag is also meant to recognize, support, and honor the families of those lost and missing who have grieved and continue to grieve, who've had no opportunity for closure. The flag was flown over the White House for the first time just back in 1982. This isn't ancient history. And just back in 1990, did Congress pass a law recognizing the flag as a symbol of our nation's concern and commitment to resolving as fully as possible the fates of Americans still prisoner, missing, and unaccounted for in Southeast Asia. Also at that time, the third Friday of every September, which was yesterday, this became recognized as National POW MIA Recognition Day. And again, this was yesterday. The flag also has the distinction of being the only non-national flag that any federal government anywhere in the world has mandated be flown regularly. Of course, now beyond Southeast Asia, this flag has become a symbol for all of our missing and accounted and POW in all our wars. At this time in our history, there is no credible evidence that there are any American prisoners of wars anywhere in any of the previous war theaters. However, since World War II to this date, approximately 82,000 Americans are still missing. 75% of those served in the Pacific Asiatic theater, and about 41,000 of those were lost at sea, and they unfortunately will probably never be recovered. In our town's recent history, because most people associate the flag as POW, but we do talk about our missing in action, as I just mentioned. Stoughton's last, to my knowledge, missing in action soldier was Paul Zawonker. He has a square in North Stoughton. He was lost in 1968. His remains weren't identified in 2005 when he was brought back here, and he was interred at Arlington National Cemetery in 2005, in October of 2005. Let me speak just briefly on the history of our American flag, because I think most of us, have a pretty good idea of that. Although I'm sure there's some facts that you may not know. I think we all learned at an early age the symbolic nature of the flag. The 13 red and white stripes represent the original 13 colonies, and the stars on the constellation represent our now 50 states. It was on June 14th, 1977, the Second Continental Congress passed the flag resolution, which adopted the current configuration of our flag. Of course, at that time, there were only 13 stars. To this day, that date, June 14th, is celebrated as Flag Day in our country. It was a man named Francis Hopkinson who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. If you're like me, most people don't know all the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and I was surprised at that. Of the 13 stripes, our current flag has 7 red and 6 white, with the red on the top and the bottom. One of Hopkinson's designs had 7 white, with white on the top and the bottom, and 6 red. Interestingly, that design remains on the Great Seal of the United States and on the Presidential Seal. The next time you see our president speak and you see in front of the podium the seal of the President of the United States, you'll see that there are 7 white stripes and only 6 red stripes. It's an interesting fact of history, I think. The flag was not originally limited to 13 stripes. In 1795, with the additions of Vermont and Kentucky to the Union, the flag actually had 15 stars with 2 stars added, and they actually added 2 stripes, so there were 15 stripes. It was this flag of 15 stars and 15 stripes that inspired Francis Scott Key to write his defense of Fort McHenry, which is now known as the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. It wasn't until 1818 that a plan was enacted by Congress to revert back to 13 stripes, but continue to add a new star to the constellation whenever a new state was admitted to the Union. This congressional act specified that new stars would be added on the first July 4th after the admission of such a state, of that state. Throughout the 19th century, prior to the adoption of the 48-star flag in 1912, there was no official arrangement of the stars, so there were many different patterns. If you Googled or looked up old flags, from that period, you'll see all kinds of patterns and variances on the number of stars and how they're configured in the blue constellation. It was just on July 4th, 2007, just 13 years ago, that the 50-star flag became the version of the flag that is the longest in use. And that, of course, came about with the additions of Alaska and Hawaii to the Union. I'd like to close, with some lines from a poem my office uses at our annual flag burning ceremony that we have the Saturday before Memorial Day. You know, we gather all the flags from all the cemeteries and we burn these at a flag burning ceremony. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it this year because of the virus situation. These lines are always read by our town's children, although sometimes they do need help from, from their parents. People of every country in the world know me on sight. I am honored, I am saluted, I am loved, I am revered, I am respected, and I am feared. Obviously, in today's climate, as was alluded to earlier by Executive Officer Holmes, that doesn't always apply in today's climate. Rhetorically and figuratively, they also don't always apply to our highly dedicated and brave police officers, past and present, who we are here to honor today with this flag raising. As the poem continues, but I have been soiled upon, burned, torn, trampled on the streets of my country, and it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. And as I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours, my finest hours, all of their finest hours, I believe are yet to come. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Pazyra, the town's Veterans Agent. Today, we are honored by the presence of our select board members, Vice Chair Mr. Cavey, Mr. Mokrisky, Ms. Roberts, and Mr. O'Regan. At this time, I'd like to offer the podium for any of you who would like to come forward and speak.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go a little off here. I'm going to ask somebody who some of you may know, some of you may not know, and he's going to be embarrassed. Michael LaFleur, would you please come forward? Michael, please come forward. I'm hoping that everybody here knows who Michael LaFleur is. And, right. What Michael does is represents all of us. When he runs up and down every street in town with his flag at his side, he represents all of us as citizens and reminds us that we are one country, united. Every day, Mike, what you do, you send a breath of fresh air, to me anyway, and I hope to a lot of people, to keep this going. We are a community, the town of Stoughton. We are one star of many that Michael reminds us as we are communities. Our community, like a lot of people, a lot of communities throughout the country, has suffered. Our country is suffering from violence, from viruses, from, in some cases, how we're led to believe how our country should move forward. In Stoughton, we all know we have differences of opinion, but this turnout today reminds us all that we are a community. On our front line of our own defense in our hometown, the Stoughton Police Department, the Stoughton Fire Department, who is here as well. But more than just employees of our town, members of the police, the fire, the veterans organizations, the people that volunteer, we are a community. This is our town. We make our town what it is. We will argue, but we will do what's the best for our community. I stand united with my colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, Deb Roberts, Steve Cavey, Bob O'Regan, and Chair Christine Howe, who's not here with us today, to do the best that we can, to give our employees and our community the resources it needs to get the job done. On the fire department, the front line, when there's an accident, when there's a house burning, when somebody's in need, they're there at the highest level of excellence. Our police department is accredited when it was one of 32 accredited police departments throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, out of 351 cities and towns. The leadership has been there. But all that leadership is done by people, patrolmen, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, of both departments. A team is getting together and doing what we have to do to make our departments the best they can be. Little fact, years ago, I say now in the old days because I can say that now, I've been here so long that I can remember the old days. I was a member of the Stoughton Auxiliary Police right after the blizzard of '78 until the mid-'80s. And now my son is a member of the Stoughton Police Department. So as an elected official to the men and women of the Stoughton Police Department throughout history, I couldn't be prouder to say that Stoughton has had the caliber of excellence that we've had in our police department. And as a parent, as a dad, I want to thank the members and leadership of the Stoughton Police Department for challenging my son to be the best that he can and to be such a member of a great organization. So on the behalf of the residents of the town of Stoughton, my colleagues, everybody gathered here, thank you for being here. Michael, again, thanks. Through weather, snow, rain, how you do it, maybe you can get me out there, I could lose a few pounds. But thank you very much all and enjoy the rest of your time here.
Sheriff's Department, so,
Thank you so very much, Mr. Mokrisky. As at this time, we'll be honoring those members of the Stoughton Police Department and the Stoughton Auxiliary Police Department who have gone before us and are no longer with us. Stoughton Police Honor Guard, you have the detail.
Stand by. Detail, urgent, huh! I got left, face, and a half step, forward, march, left, right, up, right, left, left, right, up, right, left, left, right, lay off, right, lay off, right, lay off, right, lay off, right, left. Mark time. March. Detail. Halt. Right. Peace. Honor guard. Present. Arm. Order. Arm. Honor guard. Left. Face. And a half step. Forward. March. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Left. Right. Lay off. Right. Lay off. Right. Lay off. Right. Lay off. Right. Left. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right. Mark, five, mark, detail, vote, right, face. Everybody, vote. Michael Varner, post. Prepare the flags.
This has been an incredible showing. I'm overwhelmed. Like I said earlier, the men and women of the Stoughton Police Department feel the support of this community. This has been a great afternoon with great weather. I would be remiss if I did not extend an extra thank you to our ad hoc in-house landscaper, Sergeant Roger Hardy, for the work that he's done here today, and our ad hoc in-house custodian of the memorials, Michael LaFleur, for the work that they did here to prepare the park today. As always, the Stoughton Police Honor Guard, they show up to everything. I'd like to thank the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department Honor Guard and our own Stoughton VFW Honor Guard for being here today. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the weekend. Have a good day.